Yesterday's Battletech Tactica, we were exploring the Flamer, looking at different weapon profiles, applications, and asking the question. You know, the idea is really interesting because a lot of tabletop war games don't implement flame weapons, don't translate them well on the tabletop. Maybe they just do pure damage and they're kind of cosmetic if you want to take it. And Battletech is interesting with the Flamer because not only does it do damage, but also interact with a mech and raise heat. But it also, if you're playing with those rules in the Total Warfare, can interact with terrain, burn stuff down, and navigate that. So in exploring that, I thought this would be a great chance to follow up with some mechs, starting with the light mechs, and then we'll jump to the mediums and push from there. Mechs that incorporate a flamer. How would we utilize it, and how does it complement the other weapons? With a sidebar to the fire starter itself, because that, as a light mech, much like the Panther, we've taken a weapons platform, or if we're looking at a little more tonnage, looking at the Victor with the autocannon 20, you've taken a specific weapon or group of weapons, or the longbow with LRM 20s, and built that mech, built that machine to utilize that tactically on the tabletop. In theory, if we can pull that tactica off. So, Flamers, starting with light mechs, and then we'll kind of continue onward and see what we can do. The Hermes. Now, this is an interesting mech for me personally, and I regularly play it simply because we all have our favorite mechs, our favorite machines, either because of the meta or those tabletop memories. Years and years and years ago, my first Battletech campaign that I played, I don't really remember how or where, but I came across pretty early on a Hermes. It was some salvage and was in pretty good shape. Fixed it up, kept it stock, no variants. I know some of the variants are popular with dropping the flamer. And played it throughout the campaign. And at the end of the campaign, it survived. So I've had this Hermes miniature in my collection, you know, the Iron Wind metal kind of classic miniature for forever. So just on that nature, it hits the tabletop a lot. And when I pull that machine out, you know, I got a lot of Mech Warrior, Battletech, Mech Command memories attached to it. That may or may not mean tactically it's solid on the table, but it's a machine that I've regularly had some experience with. That and the Locust. If we're going to put down a light mech, I feel like, you know what, I can represent pretty well. So I needed to kind of get that framework in there. The Hermes is a heavy scout mech. It's kind of built like the Cicada, with the idea of a scout mech is one that is going to work with a lance, but also either break away from that lance or operate on the fringes of that lance, forging ahead. Just for a framework for the new Battletech players, you know, a lance is 4 mechs. A lot of different ways to compose that mech. Support lance, assault lance, kind of a generic inner sphere type lance. But those 4 machines that I have, they want to stay, if we look at the weapons profiles, and of course there can be different weapons profiles, we kind of want to look and make sure that everything overlaps. So if I'm advancing my Griffin up the table and it becomes within firing range, well, the other machines can overlap and return fire for mechs and lance firing. So I want to stay close enough that everyone can support and advance and overlap with each other. Now, weapon configuration's a little bit easier than others sometimes, but with a light mech, if it's a heavy scout mech, sometimes what you'll do is detach yourself and move off, so you might just be out of support range for your lance. Not totally out, just on that fringe. Maybe supporting LRM 20s from your archer can hit that, or maybe a PPC at long range can support you with that. And the idea is to recon, to skirmish, to kind of open up a flank and wait, maybe to flush out some vehicles or get some motive hits on some dug-in vehicles, because with the light mech, I've got the speed to stay at range, skirt around. If my lance is advancing and you've got 2 dug-in vehicles, I don't want to give up that position. I'm forward-facing. I've got the best armor. I can fire. I've got good position. And maybe that light mech works itself to the side. Now, this kind of changes the role as a heavy scout mech in that you're putting yourself out there. So design-wise, inner sphere, what we see is they tend to be in the heavier tonnage range because you are limited, right? We have weight bands, weight classes for each mech. There is a significant difference since we're really slicing it thin with tonnage for light mechs, something like the Flea super light mech, just like a metal box on two legs, or a heavier, like a Jenner, a heavier light mech, you reach that line with the heavy light mechs and the light medium mechs. A few of them, it could kind of be one or the other, depending on the configuration, the variant, and the scenario. So a heavy scout mech, still need that speed, but we're going to sacrifice a little bit. Still going to be fast, not locust fast, but still fast. We're going to put the armor on, and we're going to look for some redundancy type weapons. Redundancy in Battletech, 1 is none, 2 is 1, 3 is some. I can shoot you with 1 medium laser. Maybe I hit, probably won't. But if I need to engage, if I have 2 or 3 medium lasers, well, that increases my shots. I'm going to try and cut down my modifier, try to catch you out in the open, try to catch you not moving lots and lots of hexes. Maybe I'll stand still. Maybe I'll walk instead of run. Usually as a light mech, I'd love to stand still and strip all the modifiers, but I'm at the very least going to be walking, and most of the time running, just to keep myself safe, because I don't need you to tag me with a lucky shot. So the Hermes has that, and weapon configuration, 2 medium lasers and a flamer. Now this is kind of an interesting match, because the medium lasers, tonnage, range, battle value, damage, they're the workhorse. They're one of the best weapons in the game. Naturally, I like PPCs and autocannon 20s. I love big guns. I love 10, 20 points of damage. Who doesn't? But heat, C-bills, tonnage, mounting space, seeing it on heavier machines. A medium laser is just absolutely solid with that. Sidebar, you don't see large lasers as much. I mean, you see them on the Phoenix Hawk to save space. You see them on some legacy mechs like the T-Bolt. But I feel like with the tonnage and the space requirements for a medium laser, yeah, you're not pushing the heat and you're gaining damage. It's almost like, you know what, I'll spend a couple other slots and I'll upgrade to a PPC. But then I do have minimums and the large laser doesn't. Sorry, if I was saying medium, the large laser doesn't. That's a Tactica conversation for a future vlog. So back to the Hermes, I've got 2 medium lasers. This is good. It's got some redundancy. I can hit you with 2 things. If it's a light mech, I can try to bully you. I can try to push you out. But then we get to the flamer, which means I've got to be in really, really, really close to engage this. Now, battle value-wise, earning, I want to be utilizing all of my weapons because I paid for it. It's baked into the C-bills, the tonnage, the battle value, whatever that currency is that you're going to use. I want to make sure I'm using it. But here's the paradox of it. If I'm getting up there to blast you with a flamer, it better hit. So I'm going to be at point-blank range. Now, a heavier machine, heavies and assaults, I'll get to point-blank. I'll get up there with my Charger. I'll get up there with the Battle Master. I'll get up there with the with my Banshee. I regularly play a Banshee because I'm going to be making mad physical attacks. Light mech, yeah, I'll make physical attacks if I can, but I really don't. I want to stay far away, or I want to control the distance through initiative and facing and moving as best I can. So what I have here is kind of wasted tonnage because I'm not really going to utilize that flamer getting up close ideally. And usually it's going to be against a heavier machine because a light mech, even if I'm trying to bully it and push it away, it will run away. Now, sidebar, Fritz, what about we see light mechs, some bug mechs out there and stuff, Stinger Wasp and configurations with machine guns or short-range missiles. Well, the machine guns are kind of in the same category as the flamers. That's why if I'm playing a Locust, I do play a variant where I drop the machine guns and we'll take SRM 2-packs. But the SRM 2-packs, you've got a little bit of range in the same band as that medium laser, and you've got the spread. You don't have titanic damage, but 1 or 2 missiles hits, but it's a little something. I can still dance at that range. So the flamer on the Hermes is kind of an interesting choice. I feel kind of it's like, well, we're designing light mechs here for the game. We're doing the tech manual, and let's sprinkle the flamer on a couple of machines. It seems an odd match for what it does. It seems wasted battle value. Okay, we could drop it. We could play a variant. We could scrap it. I'm sure someone could crunch the numbers, some mech tech, and find me up, another. medium laser, but then I've got heat issues and things like that. But tactically, here's how I see the Hermes. Naturally, if I can approach a target and get to point blank, an example might be some vehicles. If I can get up there and they've taken some motive hits, I'll get to point blank range. I'll try to kick them. I'll try to hit them with the lasers. I'll wash them with the flamer. But that's very, very rare. I want to stay back. What I see the Hermes as is adding some support with the medium lasers, trying to bully and push away light mechs that might try to be annoyingly getting on my flank or eventual rear armor when we move up. But also, since the nature of a heavy scout mech means I am pushing on the outskirts of that range band, I'll use the flamer to, if we're playing with these rules, which in my Battletech group, we do play with the total warfare and everything. So I think you have to have that consensus ahead of time, what you're playing with. I'll burn down forests. I'll ignite light buildings. We'll wash and do some damage on some stuff. We'll do some area control, and if you're playing with the smoke rules, utilizing that, burn out some forests, create some stuff. So I see it as a duality of where I can get up there and utilize those 2 medium lasers, which is solid. It's not 1 medium, it's 2. Solid. But I can also kind of remove some terrain and remove in the future where you're kind of going and doing. And here's another example of it, a little more extreme battle value. In City Fight, City Tech, I will often take Demolisher tanks too. And they will often scout a little bit of ahead once we get into the city density of my lances. They will eliminate buildings. What I try to do is eliminate some buildings around me. If you're playing with those rules, 2 autocannon 20s over 2 tanks, plus some fire support from the advancing lance, it's going to level the city block in 1 turn. I will level some buildings to open up an area, but I'll leave a few in my area to build a little fire base. Or if I'm in City Fight, City Tech, and you're really pushing against me and I've got to withdraw, I'll level the buildings as I go. So this way you don't advance and have cover and have that. Or if you can jump up on them and get me down from there. So I see the Hermes kind of doing that in a very more controlled, small way while adding the 2 zaps of that. So this is the first place. Again, fire starters or light mech, complete category on its own. We're going to cover that. But this is kind of your first introduction with a flamer and how to pair it and how to use it. But I will say, and when I played that campaign, I kept the flamer the whole time. Used it a couple of times. I had some fun with it. The idea is also, what I do see is if you got something like the Hermes, do the 2 or do a variant or do something. I think a lot of players do drop that flamer, but we're looking at stock. All right. See you in the game.